Hey everybody, it's Rob Jolliffe, and this is another Ask the Expert. Today I'm going to answer the question, can you implement an ERP system on your own? And let's get into it. Okay, so can you implement ERP on your own? And I'll give you a preview of the answer. It's probably not, but let's get into the question and see why. So I'm Rob Jolliffe. I'm an expert in Microsoft Dynamics ERP Systems, specifically in manufacturing and the supply chain. And I record these videos just to kind of give a little bit of information for people who ask me questions. And often they're questions that I've been asked during a call with somebody who is usually, if they've been calling me and talking to me, usually a manufacturing company. And typically they're looking for a small market, mid-market ERP system. They don't want to spend millions of dollars on an ERP system, but they're happy to spend tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on something. And that's the kind of product that we sell. A lot of people do book appointments with me and just kind of talk to me about these videos. I get a lot of people who reach out to me and they're asking for my opinion on things. I'm very happy to share that with you. I try not to be a really pushy salesperson. So if you have a question, you want to have a call with me, I'll try and just give you my direct answers. Okay, so the question today that we're trying to answer is, can you implement an ERP system on your own? And I kind of previewed the answer, which is probably not. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but I've broken down 5 that I think kind of summarize. So the first reason that I think is that ERP is probably more complicated than you think. Unless you've actually really gotten into doing an ERP implementation, and very, very few people have done this, you may have done a QuickBooks software rollout, or you may have rolled out CAD software, or you may have rolled out Microsoft Office, and you're thinking it's software, how difficult can software really be? But if you compare something like QuickBooks and ERP systems, any modern ERP system, it's just going to be radically different. And I think there are very small ERP systems that are purpose-built to be relatively easy to implement. But even those, I find when speaking to customers who've tried to put them in, it's not something that they can do on their own. Now, I don't sell the smallest ERP system. I don't sell the biggest ERP system. I sell something called Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. And this is the training company for Business Central. This is sort of a breakdown of all the modules in it. And they're grouped in main heading areas, and then they're subdivided into sub modules or areas. But if we just took one of them and we kind of blew it out, so we took manufacturing and the title, the heading of manufacturing from the previous slide, we just click on it and we drill down into manufacturing. We get all of these features and modules, and each of these honestly has sort of sub pages that are associated with it. So for instance, for items, you have units of measure, you have item price lists, you have item bill of material structures, you have a whole bunch of things under the items in the planning column that this doesn't even do justice to. So this is, if I took out finance and I kind of blew it out, it would be this big. So there's a lot of features in a traditional modern ERP system, and we're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of features. So one of the examples that I give is that in an ERP system, there are all these pages. Each page is like a different screen you can open up and fill information in. And what I've done here is I actually went and I got the NAV, Microsoft Dynamics NAV, which is the older version of Business Central, but virtually identical. And I'm just going to open up an Excel spreadsheet that I created. So these are the pages inside that system, and I want to show you how many different forms and pages there are that can be filled in. So these are all able to be filled in by a person. They contain data in them. The data is used in some part of the system, and you have to understand which of these you need to use, because not every customer uses every one of them. If you're a not-for-profit, I'm about halfway through and we're at 1,500. So I'll just scroll really quick to the bottom now. There are just under 3,000 different pages in the system where you can put data in. You don't need them all. Our job as an ERP consulting firm is to know what they do roughly and how they interact with each other roughly of the ones that our customers need to know. It's a lot. I would say that's the main reason why trying to do it on your own is a lot more difficult than you probably think it is. Okay. Second reason is that in our experience, an ERP implementation is more change management than it is software training. And what that means is that you're not just like taking a piece of software and just sort of putting it over top of what you currently do and it's all exactly the same, it's going to match. You're actually having to change what you do to suit the software, or you're changing the software to suit what you do. I'm going to tell you, changing what you do to suit the software is probably a tenth the effort of changing the software to match what you do, because what you do sometimes doesn't make any sense. Most companies want to buy an ERP system also to do things that they don't already do. So maybe they're doing them in Excel, or they're doing them on a whiteboard with a pen, or they've got, sticky notes or whatever it is, but they're not doing it in software today. So they're doing something to get by, and they want software that actually automates the process and does it easier for them. So you don't know how to do it in software, or you would already have software. So this requires you to change the processes that you're following. It's not like you're going to buy software and you have this really inefficient spreadsheet you use today to do all your planning, and the software is going to introduce the same inefficient method but is just somehow better because it's not in a spreadsheet. It's going to change the way you do things. If you are turning an ERP system on to do something new, something you've never done before, something you don't already have in a computerized system, it's way harder than using new software to do something that you are already doing. So in other words, it's that old thing that you're doing that you know how to do in software because you've had software doing it. So this would be one thing where I would say, if you are going to implement an ERP and you have a good ERP system and it works and you know how it works and you've got a lot of staff who are familiar with it, and you don't want to really, like the new ERP system you're buying has almost exactly the same matching processes, you might be able to, but that's not normally who reaches out and asks this question. The third point I make is that you have to have experience as a person. You have to have experience to do a job. If you've ever, heard the saying, I'll get into that in a second, but you need experience to become a master of something. Very, very few people do these projects regularly. Like, it's not like your typical customer regularly implements ERP. And I say virtually no in the slide because actually there are a few. I have run into companies where they buy divisions and they have a little group, and the group is an ERP implementation team. That's all they do. And they do 1 or 2 of those a year. So after 5 or 6 years, they've got a fair amount of experience, because if we've heard the adage, it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. If that's the rule, you have to look at your team and say, who has 10,000 hours experience implementing ERP, not using ERP, because you need enough experience to know what you don't know. And if you're just a user of an ERP, it doesn't mean you know anything about the ERP system. So one of the skills that you need to be able to ask is like asking the right questions of the users to understand which modules of the ERP would work properly and which modules of the ERP would not work properly. But if you don't even understand what the ERP can do, then you don't know to ask those questions. Okay. So this gets back to, it's sort of continuing from that theme, but now it's just talking about the regular staff. So if I have a person or two that I think are going to be doing the implementation, now I'm going to assume that the rest of the team is going to help them in some way. And here's the little analogy I use. You could drive a car. You could even drive a car really well, but you might have no idea how the engine works, or how the transmission works, or how the electronics or computer in the car works. You don't know anything about that, but you still can drive a car. And the same is true for ERP. In our experience, most staff who have ERP experience and they've used ERP systems, they've used them like a car driver drives a car. But when you're implementing an ERP, you're more like a mechanic or a group of people assembling a car. And just because you've driven a car doesn't mean you have any idea how to assemble the mechanism of the car and make the car actually drivable so that it would work. And that, I think, is where a big disconnect comes. I'll say this is a sort of a little bit of an aside. Customers who have hired employees who've worked with SAP or Oracle or any of the really, really big ERP systems that are often used by large manufacturing companies have this assumption that the big ERP system and the smaller ERP systems are similar enough. And if you've learned the big ERP system, well, certainly you could put the small one in. It's a little like saying if you've learned to fly an airplane because that's a really big system. You must be a great motorcycle driver, because the big airplane is the same as driving a motorcycle. It must be the same, and it's not at all. Or another analogy that I find really good, if you're a mechanic on an airplane, because you're a mechanic on an airplane, you must be able to fix anything on a car. Probably people who like fixing things on cars become mechanics on airplanes, but just because you can fix a jumbo jet engine doesn't mean you know anything about a diesel or an internal combustion engine or anything about a car. You might not know anything about how to fix a car, and how all of the mechanisms of it work, especially not broadly, because you're probably super specialized on just one thing on that airplane maintenance, and you're not a generalist who can just do anything and everything. ERP systems provide a lot of paths to make decisions or to achieve different things. So sometimes there's more than one way to do the same thing in an ERP system. And these paths all kind of fit together, and each choice impacts the next choice, so that the problems that ERP systems are trying to solve, they're not always a straight line from, I want to be able to automatically make purchases to I'll turn on a system that just automatically makes purchases. I need to feed the right data into the system so it makes the right purchasing decisions for me. And this all comes back to an ERP system is an integrated system. So the whole system is integrated together. And because the integrated system, all of the steps in an integrated systems kind of impact each other. So each one step leads to the next, leads to the next. And so you can't really implement just part of an ERP system. You can't implement the purchasing system without the accounting system. You can't implement the accounting system and have inventory control without also implementing the bills of material and the production orders. Like the system fits together in a web, and if you were to cut a few strings of a web, the web would just collapse. So if you think about the spider's web as being the ERP system, and all of the features of the spider web kind of go together to make it into a full web, you can't leave out parts of it. If you leave out parts of it, it won't stay together. It won't actually function. And that is really the same thing with an ERP system. The other thing, to use the spider web analogy again, as I weave the web, if I make a mistake someplace, the mistake is going to distort everything after that point. Like if I've left a thread out, then the rest of it isn't properly supported, and it won't survive. And that is exactly what we find happens with ERP implementations. It's often why ERP implementations become super, super customized, because at some earlier point in the process, a decision was made that was wrong, and the customizations are kind of trying to backfill for the wrong decision and fix it and make it right. So in summary, ERP is more complicated than most people think it is. They don't really realize how much there is to it. It's a little bit of not knowing what you don't know. There's much more change management in it than just training people to use software. You're actually changing the way you're doing the business to suit the software, not the other way around. It takes years of repetition of doing ERP implementations to actually be good at ERP implementations. I run into people who are relatively new at it, and if we were to hire them, we do not allow them to go out on their own and work with any customer until they've had at least 6 months of coaching and shadowing, and then another 6 months of being carefully shadowed while they might work with clients. And it's not until they have at least 2,000 hours under their belt that we're actually letting them work with clients directly, or shouldn't. Your staff may have worked with ERP systems, but like the driver who drives a car but doesn't know how the car works, just working with an ERP system doesn't mean you understand it. And finally, the ERP system is this integrated system that's like a web of interconnected features and functions that all affect each other. So it's much more complicated than you think, even by looking at the list of modules that I showed at the beginning. You would think I could just pick one part of that and start working with it, but you can't, because it's designed to all work together, not in parts. As always, if you like the video, just check out all the links in the description. We put some different links to relevant articles and videos in the description of our videos. And remember, you can always book an appointment with me if you're interested in talking some more. Please subscribe and follow. We create new videos for our site weekly. I do these videos occasionally, not every week, but we have a bunch of different content that comes to our YouTube channel all the time. Please keep your eyes out on it and click subscribe and follow. And please like this video if you found it helpful. Thanks very much. Have a great day.